Well, this is a very special treat today. You are on the Where's Mark segment, sponsored by the Steele County Times, and we are here with the mayor of Faribault and Senate hopeful, John Jasinski. And I'm saying that correctly, am I
Jasinski,
not?
you got it correct.
Jasinski.
Yep.
And you see John everywhere now. We see him in parades, we saw him over at Little Missile. He's the kind of guy that's going to actually be there. And of course, you notice I'm wearing my work boots and my jeans and everything, because even though he's all dressed up and looking pretty spiffy today, he's a working man's candidate. Don't let his appearance fool you. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. When we had that flood issue just recently, he's up there shoulder to shoulder with everybody else, bagging and making sure that the sandbags saved homes, and he was like a one-man crusader up there in Medford and Faribault when the floods hit. So, John, what was that like on that day?
Well, first I want to clarify, I was just in Faribault, I wasn't in Medford. I was actually doing my Faribault mayor duty, so I was not in Medford. And I wasn't by myself. We had a great community that got together, that helped people and worked as a team to save a lot of places. And the big one that I was involved was Faribault Dairy, which is the famous blue cheese from Faribault, and they had about $2 million worth of cheese in their caves. The sandstone caves that made them famous, and they were concerned about the water coming in into the caves and ruining the cheese. So we actually built a dike and saved that facility, as well as our wastewater treatment plant was almost to the 2010 flood mark. So we were about 3 inches away from that. So it was very in deep dire needs of saving that, so we did that, and the community of Faribault got together and did that collectively. So it was really fun, not fun, it was really good to see the community pull together and get that done. So.
Right. Well, I know that there was a lot of great reports of some of the things that you've done up in Faribault. As mayor of Faribault, what are you most proud of that you've accomplished in your tenure as mayor?
You know, my big push or my platform when I ran was for economic development, and to see more tax base in the community and more industry expanding, and us as the city being more business friendly to attract those people and help them expand. And you know, through the downturn in the economy in 2009, when in that recession, we actually had a huge expansion of Sage Electrochromics, which is now St. Cobain. We had the wool mills reopen and several other facilities. So really, that economic development is a big thing for me. See our tax base grow, and again, seeing the city work more as a business, to be business friendly, to help people through the process of their getting a permit for a deck or getting a variance for a fence or whatever it is, to really walk them through that process and be more business friendly. So that's what I really wanted to do. We did a lot of investment in our community during that time. It was a little bit off schedule. We couldn't plan for the downturn in the economy, so we had a lot of projects going on in Faribault with our whole downtown. All new water, sewer, curb gutter, all those things had started just as the downturn happened. So the timing wasn't the best, so we got involved in all those improvements during the downturn, but we worked ourselves through it and really tried to thrive as a community. And so I think my economic development background is or my accomplishments there are most of what I'm happy with. But we've done several other things. We started the Vision 2040. We started the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program in Faribault. There's lots of things that have happened in the community in the last 8 years since I've been there. So,
now I've done a little bit of homework on you, and what I think some of the greatest compliments that I've heard was this: is that Mayor Jasinski made us visible. Faribault was pretty much a community that was just kind of limping along and not very prominent here in southeastern Michigan. And what people say is that you had the ability to come in, and you weren't just a dreamer, but you were a visionary. And the difference between a dreamer and a visionary, John, is that dreamers just continue to dream things and speak things, but you make things happen. And you made it happen in Faribault, and you put Faribault really on the map and made them visible again, which is quite an accomplishment up there. How would you transfer this and make this parallel in your Senate campaign?
The economic development was my background there, and I want to continue that on to try and make Minnesota more business friendly. A lot of the things that I deal with business and industry is, the tax structure in Minnesota is not very advantageous for business. So I really like to continue my work with the industry and people on making our taxes lower. We're currently number 3 in the nation. That's too high to me. I think we should be number 15 or 16 maybe, because we do have a high quality of life. We have the season change in climate, so we have some road things like that we do have to have, a little bit higher tax rate, but we don't need to be leading the country in our tax rate, so I want to work on that. And that's really my biggest thing, and I think Minnesota does not have a money problem coming in. It's how it's distributed and how it's prioritized and the programs that we're spending money on. There's programs out there that I think that need to be looked at seriously of why are we spending this amount of money on these things, and try and prioritize what we want as a state to where we want to be. And that's probably my biggest thing. The MNsure issue, I was against that when that came out. Really seeing the money that has been spent on that program, and as you see in the news now just recently, that's, it's not working, it's not effective, it's no longer affordable. So that's another big thing, and that's more evolved since I've been campaigning and going to the doors and knocking on doors and listening to what people's concerns are. That's the big thing I see. So
I know that firsthand, moving to Minnesota, hooking up with MNsure, and coming from Michigan, which was another state that was downtrodden as far as its economic strength goes. We lost 400,000 people in 5 years there. But coming here, I was shocked at things in MNsure. And when I heard that you were all about changing that, I was like, okay, I have to sit down and talk to this man, because I feel that if we can get things done there, it's going to change a lot of people's lives.
And it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, it's a complex system, but I think it needs to be changed. Someone had commented, I don't know, it's only affecting the people that are individually insured, or the individual people, but that's outstate Minnesota. That's your accountant that's down the street, that's your small-time guy that owns a shoe store. It's really hitting outstate and greater Minnesota worse than anybody. Up in the metro, a lot of those companies have group plans and company plans where it's not so much, but in outstate Minnesota, the Faribaults, the Wasicas, the Otanas, the Nearstrands, those are the people that are Blooming Prairies, the Ellendales.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are most affected by this, and
Sure.
it's devastating to what it's doing. And there's companies pulling out, and it's very scary. So that's one thing I want to work on. My other big thing is roads and bridges. The amount of money that's spent on light rail in the metro, we can't afford to be paying those things. I mean, that's a metro area. I know there's a certain percentage of the sales tax from motor vehicles that go towards that as a state, a percentage that automatically goes there. But the other money being spent should be collected up there. We as an outstate Minnesota can't afford to fund that.
Sure.
And more importantly, it's not profitable. The amount of money that we're going to subsidize that program is huge, and that's money that can be spent on education, that's money that can be spent on roads, and that's money that can be spent on the health care, cleaning that thing up. So we need to work on that to really prioritize what we're spending our taxpayer money on.
Right. Now, you're running for the 24th district, correct?
Correct. District 24. Yeah.
And District 24, for those that are watching that may not realize it, what counties does that, would you be in charge of?
That's Steele County, Rice County, Waseca County, and part of Dodge County.
Okay.
And 3 of those are county seats, so Waseca, Owatonna, and Faribault are all county seats as well.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit you with a question that is probably the hot issue right now. And don't want to put you on the spot, but I kind of feel that you would be our champion in this. And that was the debacle that just happened with the Highway 14 thing, and how the governor at the last minutes all of a sudden decided that he was going to hold out because of the light rail funding, and Highway 14 project got shelved. What happened?
Well, I wasn't part of that or involved in that, but from what I understand, there's $85 million that would have been put into Highway 14.
That's exactly right.
One on the east end from Mankato to New Ulm, and then obviously from Owatonna to Dodge Center. So
Right.
Those are the big areas. I think there was 40 million in one and 45 in the other.
That's what Mike Doherty told me
yeah.
from MDOT.
So that's a shame to do that at the last minute and kind of throw that in. And again, Governor Dayton was big into MNsure and how great it was going to be, and jumped on board real quick. And now look what's in the news. I mean, he jumped too early, and now we're paying the price for it. I think from what I heard, and I don't want to switch it to MNsure, but I think there were 70 amendments proposed by the Republicans to clean up some of those issues in MNsure. And of the 70, I think only 17 made it to committee, or out of committee, I should say. And I think only 2 amendments were adopted to that. And these were all the Republican tweaks that they believe would help some of these issues. So the same thing with this transportation. we don't know that this light rail is the greatest thing. I mean, it can affect people differently. Us in outstate Minnesota, who can barely afford to put our kids in college and save and pay for all these things, should be subsidizing that money up there. And
That's me.
To what I understand it, it's $22 per way is the amount that we're going to subsidize those train fare rides back and forth from the Minneapolis Metro out to Eden Prairie. So, we can't afford that. If it was, somewhere closer to, subsidizing it a small amount or, nearly breaking, transportation obviously is not going to be a profit maker, but I mean, if you're a little bit more closer to being, breaking even, that would be one thing, but it's not. It's a huge amount of money that we're putting in, and it's not only now, but it's in the future for upgrades, new equipment, new technology, new routes, all those things. So once they get it in, then what's the next thing they're going to be asking for? So the biggest thing that I always say is you can't haul grain on a light rail, and that's what we're about outstate Minnesota. And it typically is the Republicans in the outstate Minnesota that's pushing for roads and bridges, and the liberals in downtown Minneapolis that are pushing for the light rail. And somehow we got to get through that and make some concessions or some way to get more emphasis put on outstate roads and bridges. Highway 14, I think the most that got done on Highway 14 was back in the days of Pawlenty and Governor Carlson and Dick Day and Connie Ruth and all those things. So really that's what we need. These little bits and pieces at a crack are nice, but to get all those people and vehicles out there to start working on a road project just to do a small amount, I mean, we need to get the 12.6 or 13.6 done from Owatonna to Dodge Center. That's very unsafe, and that's what I'd like to see. So.
And they've already got the property allotted. The homes have been purchased. There is now no, from what Mike Doherty told me, there was no snag in that. The snag came in our upper echelons of government, and it almost seemed like they were holding the Highway 14 project hostage because of the light rail. That's what it looked like to me as a working man here in southeastern Minnesota. And I don't know, maybe I was way off, but it's what it seemed like for us.
Right. And there's a couple other road projects that are like Highway 14. I can't remember the names, but there's one out in western Minnesota.
Highway 23.
23 that's also, again, it's not safe when you go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes to 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So that's what we really need to do. And again, I think it's just prioritizing what we want to spend our money on and get that done. It shouldn't take 50 years to get that done. I mean, we got to get it done. Is my big concern. So that's a big thing for me is roads, and Highway 14 is obviously the biggest one. I've spent a lot of time in Owatonna, and that's the #1 big concern I hear in Owatonna, along with the Minsure, and those are things that we just need to get taken care of.
Sure. And then you deal with the things like the speed traps, where you come out of the 55 into the 65 and the 6, which isn't too bad, but then you go from the 65 into the 55, and it's just like this, and you got to slow down. And I know I've been stopped there, so it might sound like I'm talking, it might be sour grapes, but I mean the idea is that it comes so quickly. And especially if, like for me, who came from out of state, that you don't see that very often. There's not a lot of warning that it's going to happen, and it's just there. So I kind of have a feeling that you might be the champion that we need to get some of that stuff through. What's your secret to getting things done?
It's working with people and just talking like we are and trying to understand both sides. So I mean, obviously we have our opinions and the other side has another opinion, but really getting together and understanding why each party thinks that. It's like being a real estate broker, which is my real job, as a business person. And to buy something, you have to get a buyer to be willing to spend what they are, and you have to get a seller to be willing to take what he wants. So to get those people together is one thing. And then as a mayor, it's nonpartisan, and you're really just trying to develop a consensus to get things done. And I know it's more difficult for the capital because it's partisan and things like that, but I think guys like me that are in business that have been brought up on bipartisan, on getting things done, we need more of that at the Capitol versus trying to butt heads and fight about everything. So I really want to use my experience to try and get that. I've been complimented as a mayor that we do get things done. I've been complimented as a real estate broker that I can get deals done. So really, using that experience in both, my government experience and my business experience, which I think really run parallel together. You can learn from one and use the other example and vice versa. I think that's what's going to help me. And, I really like getting involved with people and being a problem solver. So That's what I want to do. I'm excited about it. I'm hearing great things. I get lots of positive feedback, which keeps me going every day. So it's been really fun to meet the people, and I've been focused more on Faribault, obviously, in my years as the mayor, because that's my job, is to be the mayor, to make sure Faribault's better. But to get out into outstate, around the district, District 24, and getting into Waseca and going down to Ellendale. We're down in Ellendale the other day at Steve's Meat Market, or wherever we're at. It's just so fun to meet those new people and enlarge your sphere of influence or sphere of knowledge. So that's what I'm excited about. I was born and raised in Faribault, so I've been there for 50 years. I know it inside and out. But to get out into other communities and learn all the things that are going, and a lot of these communities have a lot of things in common, and a lot of the communities are different in a lot of ways. So using that to really build my expertise on trying to get things done has been really exciting. It's a great learning experience for me, and I really do plan on being involved in making this district a lot better. So,
as a senator now, would you be in favor of a lot of local governments here are run by themselves, a lot of local governments, and that we have a lot of inconsistencies, towns that are real close together, but they're real inconsistent as to this town runs it this way, this town runs it this way. Are you on the side of making things more consistent and more under an umbrella, or keeping things as they are, as far as letting things run as they are?
The more we can do collaboratively together, because again, what's good for Owatonna is good for Faribault, and what's good for Ellendale or Blooming Prairie is good for others. Not any one person wants to live in a certain thing, or there may be someone that lives in Owatonna that wants to go to a school in Faribault because of a hockey program or a volleyball program, or vice versa. So I think what's good for the whole district. It is a little bit nicer to have things standardized, but you have lots of different moving parts in different communities, and the political. I think it would be difficult, but I think the more you could work collectively together, the better. But I think each individual community wants to keep their identity, so I think that would be, it would be a little bit of a test, but.
I think it'd be a challenge. Sitting in even some of the, you talk about Ellendale, some of the council meetings over there, they're facing a real uphill battle with this MnDOT coming in and redoing a lot of the road from Highway 35 all the way into Ellendale, making them upgrade a lot of the water systems and things like that. And it's kind of like that, I can't remember where that town was. I think it was out in North Dakota or western Minnesota, someplace where they couldn't make it. They just didn't have the money. Well, one of these leaders comes to you, what are you going to do?
Well, that is, infrastructure is always expensive, and it's, as a mayor, it seems like the state puts more and more requirements on the cities to do those things, and it's tough on cities. It really kind of goes to like an unfunded mandate. So all these requirements, and they put them on the cities, and they expect the cities to pick up the tab. So you have to work together to try and do some of those things, and some of these regulations have gotten crazy in the state of Minnesota. The amount of money we're spending on these regulations have, gotten worse and worse. So I think looking at that to see what we can do to make the regulations be a little bit more workable for communities like at Ellendale, things like that is what you have to do. I mean, we have done it in the city of Faribault where you'll come out one year and you'll do a pedestrian access on a sidewalk, and then 4 years later they change the requirements, so you have to, next time you do a street, you have to keep changing those things. So the changing regulations are expensive for small cities like Ellendale or Faribault or Waseca or wherever you're at. So looking at those things to try and make those better so that they're not crippling these small cities with their money.
And that people, then housing market's going to be affected there. People are going to start moving out of an area. Conceivably, we could see ghost towns coming back into America like they did back after the Dust Bowl and after the Great Depression. Same thing. It's almost like history repeating itself here. The last thing I want to talk to you about is you're running head to head against a strong incumbent in Vicki Jensen. How do you feel this election's going to go?
I get that question all the time. How's the election going? How are things going? I get so many positive feedbacks. It's great. So I think it's going really well. But I just read in the article in the newspaper, was in the Owatonna People's Press, that there's outside interest groups spending $95,000 to not get me elected. So that gets a little concerning when you have that kind of special interest money going against you. So obviously they wanted to keep her spot. So we got to get out there and grassroots and get out and knock on doors and tell people this is why we're doing it and get the message out. I don't have the financial capability that these special interests as an incumbent has to get that word out. So it's really the grassroots and meeting like this, and going downtowns and into areas of all these cities and in the area, and really let them know why you want to get involved. I want to get involved. I want to make change. So I'm going to do as best as I can, as hard as I can. I continually get great feedback from people, but until November 9th, you don't know.
Isn't it funny how people are so afraid when they see you coming because of the way you can change things? And here we're people that we don't want to be in a rut, and then when somebody proposes change, we don't want change. Well, what do you want? Do you want to stay in your rut, or do you want things changed? And change is always hard. It's not comfortable. It's not always the easy way. But if you look at a big picture, sometimes it's the better way for our future and for our children, things like this. And I know that, John, you're working with a lot of special interest groups and with a lot of environmental groups, and you've done a lot in Faribault, and I just really feel that you would have a lot to offer for southeastern Minnesota. And it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and just meeting you and knowing.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yes, you can ask a couple.
Sure.
We've got Emily off camera over here.
Hello,
and
people.
She's from the Steele County Times. And Emily, what would you like to ask?
I've got 3 questions for
Okay.
you. So obviously deciding to run for office is no small decision. We've talked about some of the changes you'd like to effect, but what was the initial cause? I mean, what made you, submit your form, put your name on the ballot?
Well, I actually got a call, and I thought it was a telemarketer, to be honest. It was the Senate Victory Fund, who's kind of the people looking for candidates. And they said they've been looking for a candidate in District 24, and they've been trying to come up with names, and everywhere they kept coming to, they kept hearing my name come up, which is, flattering. It's nice to hear. So they called me, and I chatted with them, and, the timing, I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, so I have a son that's going to be a senior, and a daughter that's going to be a sophomore, And I really had to discuss it with them if, it's something I can handle. But, watching, again, being involved with industry and Faribault, and as a mayor, there's a lot of things you can't do as the mayor. Tax policy for the state and things like that, corporate tax and those things that you can't do as a mayor that you can at this level. So I started thinking, hey, maybe this is the right thing at the right time to do. So just thinking of that and talking to my kids were very excited. They thought it was a great idea. They've always been excited to see me as the mayor, and they hear good things at school. Their teachers, same thing that you're saying, is you hear good feedback. So they were excited about it and the energy there. So. It took from roughly almost a year ago, I think it was in the middle of October, right before Halloween, that they called me. We had some long discussions over Thanksgiving and Christmas with not only my family, but my business associates, and how I'm going to handle business and Senate if I were to get elected. So it was a long process thinking about it, but really thinking, this makes sense. And to have this, the leadership at the Capitol come to me was obviously very flattering to me. So, I thought, somebody's thinking I'm doing the right thing, so I'm going to give it a shot. So, and you keep hearing, why doesn't the average person like you run for something like that? So, the combination of those two things, because, in the last session, not seeing things get done and things like that, to see someone that could actually come in and try and make some change, I think is, all those things together, and the input and the feedback I've gotten from people kind of encourage me to say, hey, the timing's never going to be right, but the timing's right for this. So
Sure.
I was excited, also looking at talking with the Senate leadership people that, we need 6 spots to take control of the Senate, and you see all the things that the House does that kind of get changed at the Senate level. So really to get together and have, control of both houses, I think would be great, and get things done and see some change. So that was probably the biggest thing of all those things put together.
All right, a bit of a tougher question. You're running on the Republican ticket. At the national level, the Republican Party is a little tumultuous right now. How do you feel about the state of your party in general, and how it might affect the state elections?
I hear that a lot. I think it's brought the interest up on the Republican side probably more than it ever has, with just people getting out and the surge of the Trump people. I mean, there's a lot of energy in that. But there's also some caution of some of the things that have been said, and I think a lot of, and not against you guys, but the media has also got that really going a lot too. So, I'm just worried about my race in Minnesota. What happens there, I think, is, obviously it's the most polarized I've ever seen it in my lifetime in 50 years, but I'm probably the most engaged that I've been in 50 years. So, but from what I hear, that people that are my elders say that this is the most polarized they've seen it too. So, You know, what happens there, I'd like to obviously see the Republicans succeed, but I'm really more concerned just about my district and the state of Minnesota and what I can do to make our district better. So, but it comes up every door I knock on, just about. You hear that too. So,
And I think too the election this year, Barnum and Bailey has nothing on what's going on in this country right now, with the absolute. Some of the actual shame that's going on in the upper echelons of government right now. I think as Americans we really, I love what you said about being partisan, and I think we have to really be at a place where we really are voting our conscience, and obviously we can't endorse, nor would we endorse a candidate one way or another. But again, you have to look at the big picture and what's going to be good for the country, what's going to be good for the state of southeastern Minnesota, and so yeah, it's you know, it's like I hear the song in my mind, "Send in the clowns, oh don't bother, they're here." You know, with what's going on, and it's just it's kind of unnerving to see some of the things that are going on in government today.
and the one thing I would want to add is, you know, the way I was raised to work hard, go out and get what you wanted, and over the years I've seen more of this entitlement attitude, and it makes it tough for me. You know, the other thing is, you know, if it were to go to the Democrat side, you know, the Supreme Court nominations or the appointments are scary to me, because I think this is probably the most influential election at a national level ever, and it may change the course of history. If it goes the other way with these appointments to the Supreme Court, our country may never be the same, to be honest. So that's really what concerns me at that level. So obviously that's why I'm on the Republican side to push for that. But I'm just, you know, not staying too involved in what's going on with the day-to-day of all the stuff. It's unfortunate, because I think the media, you know, really causes people to be frustrated with some of the stuff at that level. At this level it's not, but at that level it just seems to be getting so crazy. So.
And I have to apologize to I have to apologize for our profession sometimes, being a journalist. You know, we're called the fourth estate, and as unbiased as we're supposed to be, you know, I think it was way back when Jimmy Carter was running, and one of the journalists at the University of Wisconsin told us it's the media that elects our politicians and our president, and I think that's so true. You know, you can slant things the way you want, but I caution people always to listen, to really listen to what the candidates are saying, not so much as what the media is saying, because they can slant it a lot of different ways. But listen what's coming out of the candidates' mouths, and make your choice according to the candidates, not according to the media. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm beyond a point where what are they going to do? Fire me for being a journalist? I don't know. So go ahead, Emily.
All right, final question. At the paper, we have also had the opportunity to talk to your opponent, who says one of the major things her campaign has going for it is both her experience and what she credits as her own personal foresight in developing policies. Now, as someone who would be new to the state level of politics, how do you feel you make up for maybe what you lack in that experience?
Well, from listening to some of the debates I've been in, it's all her experiences that she's been in the last 4 years. So I haven't been in there yet. So all my experience comes before that. So again, you know, she's been involved for 4 years, through 4 years up there, and all the committee meetings and all the experience and those things. She's gotten that experience. I've done it, you know, before I go in. So, you know, I think when I get in, all that experience that I've used at the mayor level will help me exceed, you know, much more at that level. So I think my background is much set up better for me to really excel at a Senate level. So that's what I'm fortunate to. Again, and most of the things that I hear in the debates and things like this, I've done this, but it's all things she's done while she's been in the Senate. Well, I've done things that I haven't been in the Senate, so I want to use that and take that to the Senate level and really watch that grow in the things that I can do. So
As a platform.
You know.
And those are good questions. Feel like we're in a town hall debate here. So, John, it's been a pleasure, and
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of the Where's Mark segment today. And again, this is coming to you sponsored by the Steele County Times and the Dodge County Independent. John is running for the 24th Senate seat, and it will affect what happens both in Steele County and in Dodge County. So if you like us on digital, you'll love us in print. And if you tell them you saw it on the Where's Mark segment, we'll give you $5 off your next subscription. Thanks. Be careful out there.
So